This doesn't seem like much. Believe it or not, these people are taking an enormous risk. Mindful of the TV cameras, the Cambodian authorities issue a warning. As quickly as it started, native citizens disband, leaving foreigners who came to join the protest in disbelief.
People are scared, people are afraid of speaking out, and community people are forbidden from having even a meeting.
David Pred, an American, came here in 2004, helping to create a non-government organization, or NGO. The goal was to fight poverty and injustice in Southeast Asia. It's been an uphill battle.
Absolutely. One step forward, 20 steps back. Where the situation in Cambodia today is not good. There's been a massive investment in the international community in this country. I mean, there's thousands of NGOs working here. Donor communities poured billions of dollars in, and what we see is the situation getting worse.
Cambodia is more than 1,000 years old. In the mid-1970s, almost 1.7 million people died in the worst genocide since the Holocaust, victims of a war they barely understood. "30 years later, life in Cambodia's countryside is still a simple existence. 60% of the population lives in abject poverty and survives on an average income of less than $2 per day. More than 10,000 children live on the streets of Phnom Penh, the country's capital. Many families come to the city in search of a better life, but cannot find an opportunity to make a living wage. Some dig for shreds of sustenance or income at the city's dump, looking for anything valuable to sell or recycle. With billions of bilateral aid dollars being given to the government, one has to ask, where is this money going?
It's a good question. If you've seen the recent Global Witness report, Cambodia for Sale, they rightly refer to the government here as resembling a, international criminal enterprise. It's basically functions like a mafia.
Located southwest of China, Cambodia is a small country, approximately the size of Missouri. The country is run by single-party rule, the Cambodian People's Party. Their leader, Hun Sen, has held the title of Prime Minister for more than 3 decades. In every small town, the propaganda from the CPP is constant. Even in the dirt villages, the network of party members is intimidating.
The official, the governor, everybody is tied to the CPP. And they are the ears and eyes of the CPP. If you talk about anything bad about CPP, people in Cambodia will be vanished. Accident happened. That's all I can say.
Author David Chandler is a world-renowned scholar of Cambodia's modern history.
So Hun Sen is extremely competent politician, the most competent politician in Cambodia. He listens, he's got good advice, he's modernized, he's very quick. He's also a thug. He has blood on his hands. He does things to people who get in his way that is not at all pleasant. He's a dictator, no question. Strongman, he calls himself. He's excellent in that sense, but you have to remember the things he's done and the things he's willing to do when things get to a certain point, when he feels his own security is threatened. He'll lash out, and he's done this. So it's complicated.
Others say it's grossly unfair. For instance, in the city of Phnom Penh is the village of Bangkok Lake. The majority of people here once made a living farming morning glory, which grew abundantly. Chinese investors wanted this land for development, so the government poisoned the crop in an effort to get people to move.
This is what they mean by poverty eradication in Cambodia. eradicating poor people. Essentially, the police, the army, the courts, the ministries, every organ of government is for sale.
To create more usable land, the government decided to fill in the entire lake. The people of Bangkok Lake protested, and they felt the wrath of Hun Sen. This is a rare scene in Cambodia, and typically takes place when encouraged by a foreign NGO. This does not sit well with Hun Sen. David Pred knows he's walking a fine line.
You never fear for your life?
I don't fear for my life, no. I mean, I fear for my visa. You know, it's quite likely that they will decide to revoke my visa at some point and kick me out of the country. They could even shut down the organization, and that's a concern.
Currently, more than 1,000 NGOs work here. This is an extraordinary figure, considering the small size of the country. The organizations provide clean water and other types of aid for the poor. What exactly is it about Cambodia that has so many NGOs working here? U.S. Ambassador Joseph Musameli.
Whenever I meet Americans, I always bring them into the embassy and tourist groups especially, and I warn them that Cambodia is the most dangerous country they'll ever visit. And they always look shocked, and I say, it is the most dangerous country because no American ever comes here and does not fall in love with the country. And no American ever leaves here without the country breaking their heart.
There people go to Cambodia and they fall in love with it and they try to save it. And you tell me what good it's done. The NGOs will tell you exactly how they have missed the mark 100%. And good intentions can end up, in fact, making people more dependent, can, in fact, feed corruption, can make sure that the situation remains awful and that you just work around the edges. I mean, there's ways to help people, but I've never seen a country where people come in and they immediately want to save it, quite like that. That doesn't happen in Thailand. It does not happen in Vietnam. But they are attractive enough that they attract a lot of people to them. And that's what I meant. They're so attractive, but beware of the trap of trying to save Cambodia.
If you're in this type of work in a country like Cambodia, which is a very frustrating place to work, I guess one way that I stay sane is I work with young people a lot, work with the youth, and that it's pretty easy to stay hopeful and inspired when you work with young people.
Most NGOs can only sit back and watch what happens around them. Police routinely harass the lower classes, forcing them to pay cash for phantom violations. Payoffs by pimps are common, as police look the other way from human traffickers who force young girls into a life of prostitution. Across the world, widespread corruption and poverty have resulted in public revolt, as witnessed in Egypt, Yemen, and Libya. As much as NGOs preach human rights, it's difficult to convince most who live here. Its recent history best explains why.
Attacks are being launched this week to clean out major enemy sanctuaries on the Cambodian-Vietnam border.
Colossal bombing to prevent a communist takeover of Cambodia before the Americans could get out of Vietnam.
There's really two Cold Wars that Cambodia was in the middle of. One, the communist and anti-communist Cold War between the U.S. and Soviet Union, and later the communist Cold War between the Soviet Union and China.
No country wants the war fought in their territory, so you choose this small, weak little country.
Washington Post reporter Elizabeth Becker was on the ground in 1973.
But they were all fighting over Cambodia as if, and Cambodians thought that their country mattered, and it wasn't that their country mattered. It was that this was a proxy war. And it's one thing to read about it in a book, and it's quite another to see the country, just eaten up by this.
Having the war in Vietnam spill over into their country was only the beginning of trouble. The United States had been supporting an unstable and corrupt Cambodian government during the war. When the U.S. withdrew, a little-known rural army took over the country. They were known as the Khmer Rouge. Their communist policies of a pure Cambodia were radical, and they were brutal to anyone who got in their way. All people living in cities were forced into the countryside to farm. Those with an education or any foreign ties were killed.
How
68-year-old Shiev Lom lives in this small house and is raising 2 grandsons. Although he was only 7 at the time, Penn vividly recalls being separated from his family and forced into the fields alongside 300 other children.
Many hungry children that have no family member around. We all separated. Nobody to turn to. I don't have friends in the camp. But just looking after yourself, being a boy of 7 years old.
The Khmer Rouge's strategy of reinventing Cambodia was a complete failure, creating paranoia within their ranks. They declared 200,000 people as enemies of the state, many being sent to a man known as Comrade Doik, who ran the Khmer Rouge's secret prison, S-21. One of the country's most notable survivors of this Khmer Rouge prison now walks anonymously amongst the tourists. Van Nat is one of 7 prisoners out of an estimated 17,000 to have survived the infamous prison. Nat worked in the Khmer Rouge's Cooperative Number 5. He had the unthinkable task of burying the 3 or 4 people that died each week. Without warning, he was arrested and taken to S-21.